This is Christian Beaulieu, sitting here with Jason Myers from Exit Here Media. I'm about to be interviewed, and I'm asking the first question. Jason Myers from Exit Here Media, why do you want to talk to me?
I had nothing better to do on a Wednesday, man.
2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I've decided to sleep with other women. Didn't mean it to come to this, but this is my only real choice. Things ain't working out the way we talked about. Not gonna sit here at night and hold my dick. Gonna hit the town, drink that Kentucky Brown, and fuck another chick. It's not that I'm not into you no more, it's just the way things are now. I think that I should just go with another girl. Think that I've given this a pretty good twirl. Well, I've decided to sleep with other women. Remember those good old days when we would get fucked up and we would party tough and we would say how we wanted each other for days. Remember those golden moments when we would lay in bed. Never enough can be said how we mistaked the booze for romance. I know this ain't what you wanted to hear, but these are the breaks in life, my dear. When you fuck around, then came back to town. This is my way of letting you know that the end is near. The end is near. Well, I've decided to sleep with other women. The situation is beyond repair, and there ain't no going back. The memories fade to black. Just wanna hit the sack and go wanna fucking tear. Your excuses quit working a long time ago. Never been one to look back and say I told you so. Just looking ahead to the nights of different treatment, where the other girls lurk. This is my song of endearment. Well, I've decided to sleep with other women. Wipe those tears, have a few beers, confront your fears about being alone, and don't come knocking, 'cause I'm not at home. I'm out sleeping with women other than you.
Actually, here media. This is episode, I guess, 3 of CurseRap. I am interviewing. This is actually a big deal for me. Interviewing Christian Beaulieu, who I think is probably the best guitar player in San Francisco. Obviously, that's very subjective, but he played guitar. How I was introduced to him, he played in this band Triclops. He's a guitar player, best live band I've ever seen. It's amazing, a force, and we have since become friends, which is kind of cool to fucking say. I was always scared of I'd always be kind of wasted, coked out at your shows, and I was scared to kind of come up and unleash. Yeah, man, that was fucking amazing, or whatever.
I seem to remember you giving me a lot of love at the shows. It was
Yes.
always a really good, positive boost, because I saw you a lot at a lot of the shows, and it was always reassuring to see a familiar local face, remind me that night didn't suck.
Thank you. I mean, that's cool that you say that. Not a lot to do with me coming up, But anyway, so we become such friends. We're gonna get into all this stuff. And he recently decided to jump off the fucking cliff, which I have mad respect for. He started his own record label and just released an EP under Liquid Indian.
Yeah, there's a couple different releases. Basically,
2011, right? Was the
yeah, Liquid Indian was recorded during Triclops' downtime when we were touring a lot, and it was came out in 2011, and that was my first proper solo album, and yeah, I had a lot of help with that from the guys in Triclops, like giving me support to like finish it.
right. It was in the downtime. Was there at the time? Was there any thought about like I'm going to turn this into a main thing, or
At the time, I was absolutely fucking terrified of playing solo acoustic guitar in front of most people. So, like, the Triclops dudes were literally the only people that I would play alone in front of. Like, obviously for writing, but the acoustic thing was still so new to me that I would literally only trust showing those guys what I was up to. Because I was, like, so petrified of it, because it's such a stripped down, naked thing. And the thing that got me through being scared to play acoustic was the specific tuning I was using. I was starting to like use open tunings, which was the only way that I felt like I could convince people that I knew how to play guitar, because it was like open tuning and you could hit a wrong note and it still sounded really fucking beautiful.
Right.
So I was like, oh, okay, you know. And then the interesting thing is the Liquid Indian solo album had a huge kind of push towards the final Triclops record that a lot of people haven't heard because we broke up at our release party.
Really?
But there was a couple songs on Helpers on the Other Side, it's called, where I play in that same tuning that I made for Liquid Indian. So it was kind of like a little cross-pollination guitar tuning nerdy zone going on there.
What was how did you sort of decide to go into the acoustic route? I mean, considering that you felt so vulnerable actually doing it.
Well, I went to this, a while ago, there used to be this, you probably remember this, there was a tiny, when there was a little birth of resurgence of psychedelia rock in SF in the mid-aughts, kind of led by Comets on Fire, actually.
Yep.
And
Oh, God.
the Bay Guardian, and used to give him a lot of love, and then there was this thing that was published in LA called Arthur Magazine, which was a print paper, and it was full color cover, and then it had black and white, and it was, you know, kind of like a bigger, like, size, weekly sized printout, and they threw a festival at the Barnsdall Art Park in Los Angeles in like 2005, and the band I was in at the time, New Confusion, went on a band field trip there to see Sonic Youth, and in the middle of the day, the Barnsdall Art Park is this kind of really cool, like, totally slept on LA park, and there was this tiny little zone where this acoustic guy from Virginia, Jack Rose, was playing, and I stumbled onto it when I was going to the bathroom, and I just like sat there for an hour, and everyone was wondering where the fuck I went to, and he was kind of like a Fahey, like he really liked Fahey, and he was kind of picking on that, but he was playing this also really dark, brooding, open tuning, like just madness. And I sat there and I bought the CD, and then we hung out for the rest of the weekend, and all we did was listen to the Jack Rose CD. And it was then that I was like, okay, I really want to try to figure out how to at least play something that sounds even as remotely cool as that. And it literally took like 8 years to like now to be, you know, comfortable enough to actually go out and play in front of people and do it. But that was the first like holy shit.
Well, how did you approach that like artistically? Sort of like, I mean, obviously you probably have to deconstruct a lot.
I think what happened was when I turned 30, my parents showed up in town unannounced, and my dad had a violin that he got from my grandfather that was beyond repair, and he bartered with the music dude, one of the music store guys, to get a new guitar for me for my 30th birthday. And then I got this, all of a sudden I was handed this like beautiful new acoustic guitar. It wasn't too expensive, but it was like you know, mid-grade acoustic guitar that I love and I still play every show now. And I think that was kind of the like kickstart, like, okay, make something of use of this, you know.
Right.
And the weirdest thing is that guitar only really stays in tune in my weird open tunings.
Interesting.
Like if I tune it to a normal standard tuning, like
Right.
for rock music or any like cover songs, it fucking performs horribly. But if I tune it really fucking weird where there's tension on the neck, it's perfect. It's kind of trippy. It's like
it's got some history. I mean, you always hear, you never know if they're really true, like those random stories of like, you know, Nirvana was recording this and Cobain went to a fucking pawn shop and like, you know, bought the acoustic, but like, that's the way it's tuning. Somebody was fucking weird and was fucking around with it before.
Yeah.
Or you just got, well, like you're just a fucking weirdo who just is awesome. all three of those things.
something happened, yeah. Something that it just, it's weird. It's kind of blurry. Like I can't even really at this point in time remember practicing that much on the acoustic. I mean, the Triclops was pretty militant as far as practicing. Like we used to say that we were dangerously over-rehearsed.
That's crazy. So
So,
what is practice? Well,
I think that
I don't want to like delve too early into the Triclops thing so far, but like that's, to me, it's like to think that like you guys were over rehearsed, where it seemed a lot of, so, and it was spontaneous. A lot of those, not spontaneous, but like authentic too. It wasn't like watching you guys and like oh, these guys are trying to do this or whatever. It's like this is what you were.
Yeah, I think that the for that band specifically, and for myself specifically on stage, I think that if we practiced enough where we felt really comfortable and everybody, like I knew where I was going to be, and I knew that my fingers were going to remember where I was supposed to be even if I wasn't paying attention, that would be the platform. That band was so serious that was actually the platform to make mistakes, instead of the other way around where it's
Right.
like, you know, we're not really, let's just play the show and like, fuck it, we haven't really practiced a lot and the mistakes are going to be cute and kind of fun and we'll laugh about them later. It's like, Triclops was a band that was like, so kind of technical to the point where we would...
Mistakes for progress almost.
Mistakes were on purpose.
Right. Right.
Like on stage live. Like I would happily fuck up parts because I knew that I could. And I could still know where I was in the song. And I knew that and the rest of the band was probably not going to be doing something as dumb as that on stage. So I could like go off on into outer space and like know that they weren't going to leave me hanging.
Right.
You know?
Which is a nice feeling to have.
And that's just the instruments. I mean, part of the inspiration for the Chaos was actually feeding off of John as the singer.
I had a friend that actually like, he came, I think it was at, what was it, Annie's? It wasn't Annie's at the time, but Cherry Bar, then it turned into, no, it was the covered.
We played Annie's.
Yeah. So
yeah, Triclops never played the Covered Wagon.
Yeah, but it was the same bar.
Yeah.
It was Covered Wagon, then went to Cherry Bar, right?
Cherry Bar, yeah, totally.
But he...
Nobody played the Cherry Bar.
Their booking was a mess. But, going back to it where it's like, I had a friend that was like, when he saw you guys first time, it was at Annie's, and then he came to the show. It was Big Business. It was at 12 Galaxies. It's a Big Business. Tomoshi?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. God, I can't remember that shit. And he was like, he watched you at that show. He was like, I feel like there's two things happening. There's two shows. You can focus on the fucking band. That in itself is like a fucking experience.
Oh, yeah,
First
yeah.
time you spoke on Johnny, I was like, that's a really good, interesting way to fucking put that, because it was literally like, it was, I remember watching, I was like, there's so much going on at all times.
It was a really, really free feeling. And by the way, those 12 Galaxies shows with Big Business for Triclops were like a huge fucking deal, because we were huge fucking fans. And I remember when Phil, the drummer, and I were just meeting each other and like cruising around and jamming for the first time, even before John had even met him. I remember like being a little drunk and talking to Phil in his car, and I was just like, oh yeah, and he was playing Big Business in his car, and I was like, "Oh yeah, we'll play with those guys." And he looked at me like I was like fucking nuts.
Right.
And I was like, "Yeah, dude, we'll totally play with those dudes," not knowing them at all,
Right.
you know. And then lo and behold, we got the chance to do it, and it was a huge fucking deal. Those shows, that venue specifically, was super cool part of SF history.
Yes, I missed that place. It was, yeah, that show just specifically. I mean, it was weird. It was like first time. Remember Replicator?
Yeah, they played one of those shows with us. We opened up, Replicator played, and then in Big Business. That was the first time we ever played with Big Business.
Oh, cool. Yeah, they did a happy hour show with Big Business at the Hemlock. 5 o'clock, like on a Saturday. And this is like, you know, Big Business had like, you know, sort of, the hype was out.
Well, that was during their Melvin's phase.
Yeah, and
they were already putting out like amazing music, so they kind of had like a double thing going on.
I was just thinking of this the other day. I was like, I'm not sure when it could happen now. I don't know who would go at 5 o'clock for that Big Business. You know, like, that's what's crazy. It's like I don't know who'd go. Like I would.
You and I would.
Oh yeah, I mean I would be there 2 hours early, fucking like asking Cody, you know, about like some weird Mercy Devil stuff. But like, so I guess the transition. Let's actually go into your. Now let's delve into the history.
Wait, but what we were talking about, the Cherry Bar and Annie's, we were talking about, you mean the separate shows that you can watch? Right. Okay.
Yeah, well, I feel like we should just dive into your history now, where it's,
sure.
To get up to this point, because I have a tremendous amount of respect for what you've done over the past few months, and taking that leap, and knowing who you are, and you know, like, you choosing that route where it's awesome. Very fucking cool. I was talking to somebody the other day about like I have a hard time sort of like trusting people who don't jump off the cliff at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else to do, honestly. I mean,
I think that's how people get to that point.
For some reason, it's impossible for me to become complacent, and because there's just too much music. I don't know. I'm thoroughly addicted, and you know, it's something that happens every single day of my life where I just wake up and I'm just drawn to it. It's like, you know,
it's work.
Yeah, I can hear it in my head, and then I seek it out wherever I can, and it's you know, it keeps me up at night. You know, like most folks that are still dedicated to what they're doing. I haven't really grown up in the sense that I've kind of put something ahead of that, like a family or a business or something like that. So it's kind of interesting to come all this way and still kind of have your brain wired to looking down the line at what you're going to do or what's stoking you out, you know. And then probably it's like writing, where you're probably...
Do you feel that, like, it's that weird feeling where it's like I feel like I'm, like, most 22-year-olds know what I'm about to have to do now, and it's weird, this sort of reverse thing where it's like, holy shit, like, now I'm like, have to go DIY, or you know, and doing it. It's like I never really had to do, you know, myself do that before, and it's this weird, cool kind of thing where I'm like, oh shit, like now when I like, you know, talk to like some 23-year-old kid like at a record store at the Indie, you know, who's like, seems like he has a good show, got a good taste in music or whatever, you know, talking about his band or whatever, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, how are you pushing this or whatever? Like, what's the game plan? 'Cause I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's not. There was a question there, but it's just it's the epitome of, like, I feel like.
Well, is it like that for writing for you, where it's like you kind of wake up and you have multiple things that you, like, kind of angles that you know you want to explore, like different book concepts, and you kind of have to hone in on one of them to realize it, or?
I can't get the ideas out fast enough, and at the same time, that's the best.
I feel the exact same way. Like, kind of, like if I there's so many different ways to approach the songwriting process. Probably it's exactly the same thing as the writing process, where it's like you want to believe that your first draft is the golden turd, right? And then somebody else will reread it, or your drummer or whatever will listen to it and be like, we should cut this and this and this, and you're like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, the first draft is the shit. And then, or the first song, or the first recording.
Absolutely.
You know, so you have to revisit it, and you, like, have to spend more time on it.
Well, yeah, over the years, I feel like for me, like, having put out, you know, that, like, where it's very much like, I know now that, like, I used to be, like, the first book I was terrified of, like, to rewrite. What the fuck is fucking rewrite? Like,
Well, that's the same thing as rearranging a song.
Right, exactly, right. It's the same concept.
Yeah.
And then, you know, over time, it's like, oh, now I know that the rewrites were, like, some of the good, best parts come into it. At the same time, I've learned, like, a very, like, that first draft is still, like, I tell myself all the time, I tell other people, where it's like, that's really the outline, whatever, but, like, there's part of me that's just like, I don't want anyone fucking with this,
Right.
or I don't even care about someone's opinion on this. This is perfect. And then I feel like with this release, allowed myself to be, you know, a bad writer on some days, because some days aren't your best. I allowed myself to be wrong a lot, like on this one, because having known that, and it was like, all right, like, just put out what's on this, you know. That's the great thing about that, is like you're only releasing it to whoever gets to hear it next or read it next.
Right.
It's not released to the world. So if you got 1,000 pages of fucking gibberish, you'll like hone that down. You know, but like that's what the good thing about it. But it took a lot of years to get there. At the same time, I still don't fully like appreciate the fact that I've learned anything. As far as like, I'm still very protective of that.
Yeah, of course.
Like,
yeah.
Who the fuck are you? Like, you sent it to me, motherfucker. Like,
Yeah.
You know, like,
The initial heart, the initial, like, you know, like, throb to get that stuff going, and the like that fire that you feel that like keeps you awake at night, or like gets you out of bed early to do it. Like, it's such a great feeling to like have that focus on what you're trying to get across and what you're trying to get out.
But at the same time, that's very hard. Like, I understand you on that artistic level. Do you have a hard time explaining that to the other people, the citizens? You know, like,
nobody asks. I mean, who would ask? If anybody wants to ask me any of those questions, I would love to talk about it.
Well, no, just explain. Like, I always had like, so, you know, in prior relationships where it was like, I don't know how to explain. You know, we was dating people who, you know, art wasn't their objective, or like, you know, they had never experienced this, where I can't explain a bad day to you because it sounds silly, because I was telling you that the imaginary people in my fucking head didn't do what I wanted them to do.
Right.
Today. You know, like, it's ridiculous, you won't get it, and it's very hard to explain that, like, that process, and sometimes I feel like, there was a part of me that always felt like, you know, like this is the hardest work I'll ever do.
Mm-hmm.
You don't understand, you know. But like, to convey that, we're like, oh, you're taking shit.
So you have a band of yous in your head trying to play along and weigh out everything. But when you're actually in a band, it's like you actually have to deal with the opposition a little bit quicker and in person. And
Yeah.
like you have to kind of get a handle on your feelings are going to get hurt. And you might not be right all the time, and if you get out of yourself, I mean, this is all like, you know, since we're talking about Triclops, like this was all pre-social media.
Okay, so let's actually,
you know,
let's
and I say
so
that I say that because social media, in lately, I've felt that social media and the addictions and the kind of situation that it has caused is a lot of. There's a lot of selfishness involved in it, and back then, before that stuff, and like trying to get your voice and your visions and hear me, and I have, I have this kind of thing, and I'm going to say this right now, and you are going to listen to it. It's like, if you're in a band, even right now, if you're still in a band, you do have to deal with those people,
right,
and they're going to call you out. Like, if we all got ideas shot down. And the beauty, and it takes a while to learn the beauty of getting shot down. And then I'm aspiring to actually be smart enough to fall in love with getting shot down.
right.
You know, in an artistic sense.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I would like, I get to the point where like when I get to a third or fourth draft, like my hope is that like these characters are saying nothing that they were on the first draft, just on my thing, you know, like it's progressed that much, and I feel like that's, I mean, grows. It's art. Like it's a, you know, art is this, again, like I always talk about this, where it's like you never be content. Art is always like it's always the way people consume it. It's always active, and so I feel like when you each song, you know, each book, whatever, like when you get to that end point, like there is this weird, awesome feeling when you kind of look back and you're like, fuck, yeah, that's how, yeah, this is really what I wanted, even though like I could never articulate it when I was starting that.
Yeah, the end product is pretty. It's always for anybody who's listening or anybody who's writing or making music. Like they always be fucking proud of your shit when it comes out, because even if you're never gonna read it or listen to it like ever, just be fucking stoked that it actually exists. Because
right.
it's no joke. Yeah,
it's not easy. It's the hardest fucking thing in the world to do, because you're just exposed as an artist. But I want to go back to the origins of Triclops, since we haven't got there. So the first time I saw Foreign Blows actually was they played with Coach Wimps it was the last show at Kilowatt. It was Noise Pop, 2002 or 3, and I was like, Foreign Blows wore me out. Then I walked back in, like did some stuff in the alley, and then like I walked back in and Coach was set up on the fucking floor. And I was like, oh fuck.
First time, I think the second time I ever saw 400 Blows was at Dwyer's house in the Haight, and it might have been Halloween or somewhere around Halloween.
He had the house down there.
And it was so much fun. It was so much fun. The cops shut it down, but they shut it down after 400 Blows was done. It was great. They were fucking loud for a house.
I saw some girl give him like a big line, Dwyer, and he did it. He was like, I'm going to bed.
He did a huge line and then went to bed?
He's like, I'm going to bed. I was like, how is that possible? He was the one who actually got me confident about doing Exeter Media.
Oh, right.
He told me about starting his label. He said, I no longer have to wait for anyone other than John Dwyer.
Right.
Because I had all this writing that like wasn't going to get probably published by Simon & Schuster, but I thought that people might want to read. And I was like slowly like, oh, that's a very good point.
Yeah, I think it's cool that he's in charge of his own shit. I mean, he's, you know,
he's earned everything he's got.
I don't think anybody knows how. Like, it doesn't. I wonder if the kids who like the OCs realize that he really loves like Barrett and Krautrock.
Yeah.
Like, I hope they get turned on to like early Floyd and like Krautrock from listening to some of the OC stuff.
Homosexuals, like fucking. Remember, like he played that record that's impossible to find. You know them?
What's that?
The Homosexuals?
Mm-mm.
There's like a weird.
This is the band or the city we live in?
Everything. Everything's homosexuals in this interview. We're now going to call.
Speaking of homosexuals, by the way,
new adjective in this interview.
The reason why I was late to meet you today was because I was walking from the Enjuta to Haight Street, and there was.
You should first understand about me.
I'm not going to say where you live.
No. It's 610 Ashbury. It's on the internet.
Oh.
There's some weird lawsuit like 2 years ago. Like somebody had written another book about unicorns or something, and it was like a suit, and they thought it was me because I had this unicorn in heaven, and like this guy rang the doorbell. He was like,
"What the fuck?"
Yeah, my roommate Teddy answered. He was like, "Who the fuck are you?" I was listening to the interaction. He's like, "Some guy's trying to sue you for like a bunch, like millions of dollars," and I googled it. It's like this big deal, like the chat rooms or whatever. I was like, "Write this book."
Wow.
I was like, that guy fucking sucks because like it was interesting. I was like, that's awesome. Like, you know what? Let me get mixed up in this lawsuit a little bit. It'd be good for Exeter Media. But I was gonna say,
dude, people are fucking strange when it comes to properties that they think they have dominion over. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I don't even know what the genesis of that was, other than like it was something like a bad deal that someone had signed back in the day. I had like created like a fake account to like comment on the thing. I don't know. I was really bored at the time. Apparently.
Check it out though. Why I was late to come meet you today.
Oh, I was gonna say, sorry, what you have to do is feel sorry or feel bad or explain about being late, whatever.
No, check this out. So I'm walking, I'm leaving the train, and I'm walking down the street, and there's this dude. I'm walking in front of this guy, and behind me, I just so happen to take my headphones off, right at that moment, and I hear this guy go, "Hey Mason, you sound like a fag. Hey, check it out. Can I get a Cuban sandwich?" And then it's dead silence, and I'm walking in front of him, and I'm still walking, and I'm like, did I just hear that in San Francisco? Like, did I really just hear something like that? And then, like, 2 minutes goes by, and I hear, "Hey, did you hear me? I'll be there in 20 minutes. I want a fucking Cuban." All right. So I'm sitting there walking, and I realize that I'm ahead of this guy, whoever this guy is. So I slow my roll, and he passes me by, and he looks back at me when I'm slowing down on purpose. So he passes me, and I'm smiling at him when he passes me, and he's like this fucking construction worker looking dude with a big hairy neck, and I'm like, "No, dude." So I like literally trailed him 2 feet away from him for like block after block after block, and he kept looking back at me, and I'd act like nothing was going on, and I kept getting closer to him, and he would look back at me, and he was like, you know, and he crossed the street, and I crossed the street, and I was sitting there, and like through my head, I'm just like, I'm like, if I call this dude out, there's gonna be a problem, and there's gonna be an altercation, so I'm just gonna trail him and make him feel uncomfortable, and then if he turns around and asks me what's going on, I'm just gonna say like, "I want to suck your dick."
That's awesome.
You know, and he fucking bailed. He kind of ran away from me, like when we were crossing the street, and that's when I went into the market, like right before I got here.
The other thing you could have said is
so fucking lame. I couldn't believe it.
Well,
I'm
the
like,
other thing
what the fuck?
You shouldn't call the guy who's making your sandwich a fag because he might spit in it, or hopefully that happened.
I mean, I admittedly felt a little. I wish I could have been a little bit more confrontational about the thing, but I'm really truly not like a confrontational person. Right. And so I did the only thing that came naturally, which was trail him and make him feel uncomfortable.
Right.
And let him know that I was like interested in.
Well, he'll remember that. He wouldn't. You know what I'm saying? He wouldn't remember like some person like calling me out for saying no. If you,
at least
if
he was uncomfortable.
Right. That's what I'm saying. He'll remember that. He won't remember if you would probably, you know, said something to him about it. It's weird. It's.
But I was hoping he was going to show up in the deli, because in the deli I happen to know that there's a very openly transgender person working there, and I was like hoping that he was going to be at the sandwich place and I was going to expose him at the deli, but he was getting his Cuban from somewhere else apparently.
Yeah, maybe that's Cuban is like he's probably going to suck a dick actually.
Everybody should.
Well, no, the this was the most openly, like, I don't know,
homophobic Cuban sandwich place.
Right, dude, we're onto something, dude. New slang for the book. It's weird because...
New book idea.
Well, not a new book, that's the title, or a short story, or maybe just
or a poem that's only 5 lines long.
Or a tweet. It's like... Dude,
tweet? Oh, fuck, dude, we're getting into it. Alright, we're getting close to it.
Alright. Let's go, okay. So, I want to start with what I think is one of the most seminal Bay Area bands. When I moved to San Francisco, the first show I think I saw was this punk rock show at this warehouse in the Mission on Cap Street. It was Angry Amputees, the Grannies, Everything Must Go. And that like turned me on until like basically like fuck, this is going to be awesome, you know. It was like 21 at the time, and then got into I feel like there's a sort of strand of like noise experimental thing that was sort of happening in those LA, San Francisco. There's some good bands there.
And the East Bay had a huge, super cool experimental, and the Mission too had a bunch of really cool, like really challenging bands at that time too. Yeah. Still left over from the 90s.
Yeah, it was. There's part of me that's like, you know, talk to musicians who, you know, weren't here before like 2000. I was like, there was a scene.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was the strongest thing ever, but there was definitely a community for sure that would show up and watch these fucking bands. And the bands were like family because you'd always see them playing with each other. Like I saw Corner Blows open for Nigel Peppercock. No, Nigel Peppercock at the Hemlock.
Yeah,
remember that?
I was just talking about Nigel Peppercock.
Yeah, it was. That's dude, Elbow Room, Shapiro, right? And they were doing in between songs. They were doing skits from Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
See that? Yeah, that was. That
It was amazing.
Exactly. So when did you move here?
2002.
Okay, so I barely beat you. I was here like literally when the clock struck 2000, and had the bubble crashed before you got here?
Yeah.
Okay, so when I first got here, it was very similar to what has recently been happening. It was like the first version of the big San Francisco displacement, where people were super upset. Friends were paying a shitload of money. I actually got paid a bunch of money to leave my place that I was sleeping on the couch back then, because it was like that turn and people were desperately trying to cash in. But back then, there was really still, and it's funny because a lot of the punks used to openly fucking bitch about that. I got kicked out of my practice space with my band at the time, and everybody was kind of like mad about it, and it was fueling what was happening in that time, which was there was still the fucking network set up in town where the shows were happening. There was house shows, there was warehouses still. There was way more of an abundance
on a Friday or Saturday, and there'd be fucking bands playing at the apartment center. You just walk in.
Yeah, it's so strange to think of now as that being like the last gasp or whatever of like truly challenging shit that had an audience in San Francisco. But I mean, I moved here during that time, and I thought that I'd fucking died and gone to heaven.
Yeah,
like
it was amazing.
Couldn't believe it.
Remember Chow Nasty?
Yeah.
So I moved to a place that, to actually say how awesome San Francisco was is like the first 2 years I lived here, I moved into like 4 different places in like 3 different neighborhoods. You could do that back then. I mean,
it was
like,
part of the awesomeness. You could actually live around the city.
Yeah, and you could experience everything. And I lived on this place on 8th and Bryant, and Chow Nasty. They just, I think, done a couple gigs with Eagles of Death Metal, and it was Dalty from Angry Amputee's bachelor party. They had it at my house. Chow Nasty played live with the stripper.
Right on.
Yeah, and it was like, I was just like, this is fucking amazing. I was like, this can't even happen now.
I remember back then there used to be 2 weeklies in San Francisco. It was the SF Weekly, which everybody thought was lame and corporate, and then there was the San Francisco Bay Guardian, which everybody was rad and independent.
Yeah, like would be the communist version of New York Times or something.
It was so it was funny. It was like my band at that time, this is early 2000, the reason I moved here was to join this band called The Clinics that became this band Bottles and Skulls, and we got nominated for Best Punk Band along with the Angry Amputees. And I remember and for some reason SF Weekly chose the cheesiest fucking venue in town, Ruby Sky, to throw. So at that time was like a total like, you know, it was like to us it was like the equivalent of watching like that show like Jersey Boys, or not Jersey Boys, but like some cheesy fucking DJ shit that was like back then was really all about cologne and fucking rich dudes. And all of a sudden, all these punk rockers, all these people had open bar. Yeah. So we were there and we were getting fucking hammered, and Angry Amputees won, and I remember like just celebrating with them and like high-fiving and like riding on the wheelchair and being super stoked for them.
Yeah.
You know? But it was so silly because we all knew it was a bunch of fucking bullshit, but at the same time, it's so weird to think now, it's like, oh fuck man, that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah,
you know, like they actually used to put out comp CDs of all the bands that were involved, and you know, it's weird, man. It was a cool time.
Yeah, it was because it was the city had room for artists, and they had room for there's always been a place where people came to make money, but there's always been a lot of space for the other, and that was a time. It was the sort of last gasp of like, where you could do that, you could come and like you weren't worried about fucking like paying, you know, you weren't occupied with like paying your bills. You're like, I can work 25 hours a week, pay my fucking rent, and like make shit and cool shit, and like just like meet new people, and you know, and it was, I'm so glad I got to experience that, and like I'm so glad that there's like still like people here that are doing it, and I would get frustrated sometimes where it's like, I mean, what else was gonna happen, you know? Where people are like, you're fucking angry, you pissed off, or whatever. But like, there's always a part of me that always felt like a lot of people got older. You know, there was a lot of like, oh, instead of like, yeah, I'm gonna go support this. It was like, or I'm not gonna return a call. Like, you know, I'm not gonna go out. Like, it was like, when did your art become about everything but you? And like, it used to be like the job was like how you like bought 40s and fucking paid the PG&E, and now it's like, I can't pay for that. I'm not feeling well. It's like, what the fuck?
Or you gotta fucking work 2 jobs or whatever.
Right. I just thought there's, you know, as that was happening, there was a responsibility that like went on both sides where I was like, yeah, fuck, I don't know. Like, I feel like there was a lot of cop-outs too, but there was always people who were like, oh, I'm dedicated to this. This is what I'm fucking doing. And
well, back then, those places, those shows, and those bands, I mean, like that, it was a totally different experience now, and it might have something to do with just common interests and whatever people were all kind of, the way that their art was consuming them at the time. But those places and the city at large really still felt like it was the place to go.
Right.
It was the place to get inspired. It was the place to network. It was the place to hook up. It was the place to book a show. It was just the place to get fucked up and know the bartender. Like, you would go to the places even if you didn't know who was playing. It would go to the places even if you didn't like the band. Like, it would just be that kind of thing that you would do. It's like in your normal routine. It was a routine, and it was an awesome routine. It was, it was very fruitful and super cool.
You get 150 people to Chemo's on a Sunday to see Master/Slave, and you're like, wow. You know, like, I mean, that's just sort of like...
straight up, I've never, ever thought that I would ever lament missing Chemo's.
It's like CurseRap, baby. It's fucking CurseRap, dude.
The first time I ever played Chemo's was before they boarded it up. And if Matt Shapiro is listening to this, fucking props to you, dude. Because Chemo's used to be this cool club where Polk and Pine, where you had to dress in drag to play there. And before they fucking had sound complaints from whatever cocksucker was fucking, complaining, it was open. You could see the street like it was super fucking San Francisco. All the fucking bartenders were openly gay or trans. The sound man was in drag, and you couldn't tell if he was, he was bisexual or anything. And it was just a very open, normal San Francisco vibe. It was the first time that I ever was like rushing to the bathroom to put on lipstick.
Well, there used to be that saying, it's like
rushing to the bathroom to put on lipstick before we played.
Rite of passage would have been like, there used to be that saying, Rite of Passage, like, have you played Chemo's yet?
Yeah.
That was the Rite of Passage.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it was our second show, or first show, like, it was like...
And then it got boarded up, and they had to deal with all the sound complaints. But I remember playing there with the Bar Feeders in 2000,
nice.
And it was amazing. And those guys chumped out because they wore their bowler outfits, and we were dressed in dresses.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, that was always the thing, too, if you did Chemo's right, it was like, you drank downstairs because that's where...
That was creepy. Like, you get trapped down there because you'd be getting hit on so much.
Right, but the drinks were like 50 cents. They were super strong.
They were.
Yeah, walking out or black out. Like,
and if the bartender thought you were hot, then you would really be drinking a lot for free.
Yeah. Do it right. And if you're lucky, you got some really good blow or whatever.
Old San Francisco.
Yeah. Do not to limit. So, okay. When did Triclops start? 2003 or 4?
I think that it was around 2005, but John and I used to, I was obsessed with Fleshies.
Yes, I was gonna, yes.
And the reason why I was obsessed with Fleshies is funny because I was working on 8th Street and at People's Cafe, and I saw The Guardian came out, and Jello had just signed Phantom Limbs and Fleshies, and they were doing a joint release party, and they were having the same release show at Bottom of the Hill. And the article in The Guardian was like the first time that I'd ever read like such an openly gushing review of 2 bands, and I was like, what the fuck? So I like went to the show and walked in right when Fleshies were on, like hitting the stage, and like ever since then I was like, oh, okay, these are the 2 best live bands in San Francisco, like Fleshies and Phantom Limbs, like fucking flat out,
So yeah, that's so much. First time I saw Fleshies was the Parkside, and
Yeah.
I was just like, what the fuck?
It was crazy, man. It was incredible. Like,
you know, like the first, remember?
absolutely amazing.
Remember the Cliftons?
Yeah.
Will,
Mhm.
you know Will. So, like, when he was still drinking, like, the first time I saw them, it was at the Parkside, too.
The Cliftons, dude. I haven't
They
thought
were
about that in
amazing,
so long.
Dude, okay, so I thought I was, like, outside, you know, the backyard area, smoking a cigarette, and I, like, looked, I was like, that looks like a homeless dude. I had no idea that it was Will at the time. And then I went in, like, they started playing, I went in, and, like, he's just singing this fucking amazing sound. I was like, holy shit, that, like, God, I thought that guy just wandered in off the street. And fucking, like, the Cliftons.
Damn. Right on.
Yeah. So, alright. So,
Okay, so I see this show, and I buy both of the vinyls, like, right away with all the money I had in my pocket. And I brought it home, and I must have listened to Kill the Dreamer's Dream like 100,000 fucking times. And I remember talking to Alcohol Cost, you know, for those who don't know, like, that's a local booker who has been hugely instrumental in the Bay Area punk scene for a long time.
Just a side note, too, like, when you went to Fleshy Show, it was interactive.
Yeah.
Just, you can take what that means, people listen, whoever listens, yeah. Good.
So I asked him, I was like, dude, can my band play with Flesh? He's like, we'll play anywhere with them, like, I don't care, we just have to play with this band. And he was like, yeah. So we booked a little tour of the mountain towns with Fleshies, and we played 3 shows in a row with them, and totally fell in love with those guys, and Johnny in particular. And, you know, ever since then we were just, like, talking on the phone a lot, and we used to call each other to complain about our bands.
Dude, Mike told me that once. I was like, that's the fucking... I, like, dude, just like a year ago, I, like, peed my pants because I knew about this information. Well, dude, you're seminal to me, so it's like,
well,
when Mike's telling me that, I was just like, no way. I was just like...
dude, it was huge for me. I couldn't believe that he was actually, you know, I don't know, God, I have no idea what we were bitching about, but at the same time, it was so, like, refreshing to have a musician to, like, complain about with, you know, and somebody I respected so much, so that at some point in the conversation, we were just like, maybe we should start a band.